Big concert up there, no?
Quiet on set.
Hello, my name is Damita Chatman. I'm with C.E.E.L, Citizens for Excellence and Elected Leaders. This is the last night. We got District 38 Senate seat. I want to thank the candidates for coming out tonight. Let me set a few ground rules. All phones on silent, please. No talking. I want to thank Pastor Chris for allowing us to be in his house over the last month. And I'm a firm believer, when we in another man's house, we respect the man of his house. And so we're going to respect Pastor Chris. And then I want to thank my husband, my camera crew. I want to thank Kathy, the moderator, which one of the moderators couldn't come tonight, but we're going to press on. Let me say this, though I'm a Democrat, I'm non-partisan in my organization. I sent you a $25 donation, so I want you to leave that with the church. I want you guys to know, no money. I don't make no money. So how was your Mother's Day? How was y'all Mother's Day? The mothers. How was y'all? All right, that's good.
Like you said, I thought it was going out.
Oh, sometimes the mother a lot.
Both.
Sometimes mama just.
And the
don't-
mothers.
But see, sometimes we just don't feel like going out. I didn't want to go out either. Going out, I didn't wanna go out.
Quiet on the set. Please tell them
where I
to
left
stop
off.
it.
Quiet on the set, please. We're getting feedback and so on. Thank you. On the set, please. We're getting feedback and so on. Thank you.
Mr. Oliver went out again. The internet went out again. You need your tablet. The internet went out again. You need your tablet. We're gonna start over, but okay, you're back in, We're gonna start over, but okay, you're back in. Let's get them to quiet. Yes. But they need to yes. But they need to I'm hearing every word that they're saying. Relax. Every word that they're saying. Relax. Mr. Oliver, you're muted.
Guys, for coming tonight. I want to thank the man of this house, Pastor Chris, for allowing us to be here to do these forums, debates, interviews. Let me set a few house rules. No talking, all phones on silent. No cheering. Also, I sent a letter out to the candidates asking for a donation for the church of $20 to $25. The money goes to this church for allowing us to use his lights, water, etc. Again, C.E.E.L don't make no money off of this. C.E.E.L spend her money. And so we don't want nobody to think we're making money. I want to thank all the candidates for showing up. We had one candidate that did not confirm. We had one candidate that got sick. He called me, I pulled in the church parking lot. I want to thank my moderator, Kathy Adams, for coming, the other one. So again, I'm going to turn this over to Kathy Adams. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Kathy Adams, and I will serve as your moderator for this evening. Welcome to the District 38, the Senate seat. We have 6 candidates that have qualified to run for this seat. We have 4 of those candidates that are here this evening. So I welcome all of my in-person guests as well as my virtual online audience. So if at any time a candidate goes beyond their allocated time frame, they will be interrupted and asked to stop. I will ask the questions of the candidates in random order. The candidates will receive the same number of questions. However, they may not receive the same questions. So I'm going to ask the candidates to please pay attention. So each of the candidates, again, will get the same number of questions. You may not, or you may get the same questions. We also ask that our in-person audience submit their questions via index cards, and we ask that our online virtual audience submit their questions via chat. Those questions will be sent to me and I will ask those of the candidate. And their vision for this state. They're seeking to lead with tact and diplomacy. So tonight we're going to present this particular forum to all the voters in a fair partisan setting. We're neither Republican, Democrat, or any party. This is a nonpartisan organization hosting this event to help educate Georgia's voters. So without further ado, I'm going to call on the candidates in alphabetical order by last name. And I'm going to start with our candidate, Rashaun Kemp. I'm going to ask you if you will go ahead and start first. You have 1.5 minutes to share your opening statement.
Well, good evening. Thank you so much, Miss Kathy. Thanks, Miss. My name is Rashaun Kemp, and I'm running to be your next state senator for Senate District 38 because I believe that my experience as a former high school principal who turned around a failing school, in addition to that, working in state government to lead a statewide agency that transformed a public education system in Ohio, as well as my experience here in Georgia, working to get laws passed to improve our public education system for our students. Makes me the best candidate as this seat is vacated by Senator Horaceena Tate. I was raised by my great grandmother, Graham, who taught me to whom much is given, much is required. And I believe that she really instilled in me a life of service because I saw the sacrifice that she gave to me and to make sure that I was very successful in my life. And two things are true. One, having her in my life was critically important, and also my education. And so I believe that my life of service from my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, in addition to my service chairing my NPU when I was just young, being here in Atlanta and leading my neighborhood planning unit, in addition to all of the community service I've provided to our community, makes me the best choice to lead this state forward. And I've planned to focus on healthcare, education, and our voting rights to make sure that we continue to fight to protect our voting rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kemp. So next I'm going to call on Ms. Nkoyo Lewis. I don't know how to pronounce that middle surname, so.
No problem. Thank you, C.E.E.L, for having this and having this opportunity for us to share our platform and for you to all engage in this conversation. I'm Nkoyo Effiong Lewis, and I am an attorney, a mother, and the only woman in this race. And I am here today because of a resounding belief that we need to make sure that women remain at the table and that we have a position and a place when decisions are being made, particularly now as decisions are being made about our bodies and our ability to live our full lives. I have spent the better part of my career advocating for women and children. This is work that I did in the classroom here in Fulton County as a 4th grade teacher who went on to coach other teachers in the district. I have done this work as an attorney, representing families in special education and school discipline matters, constantly having to fight a David and Goliath battle against districts to ensure that every child has an opportunity to learn and grow. And I have done this also representing predominantly women who are opening businesses and helping them to launch and protect those organizations so that they could provide for their families when the tradition. This is the same type of work that I will continue to do as an advocate for women and children across this state. We know that when we put resources into the hands of women, it improves whole communities. We know that when women sit on boards, it improves the productivity and profitability of those organizations. And so I'm asking you to vote with me to make sure that we do that in this state.
So next I'm going to call on a candidate, Mr. Terry, DJ Terry.
Well, thank you, Ms. Adams, of course, and thank you to Ms. Chatman and to the organizers from C.E.E.L. My name is DJ Terry. I was born and raised right here up the street in the city of Atlanta. I actually learned how to play baseball about 200 yards from here at Santon Park. My sister was a Girl Scout also at Sandtown Park. And so I just want to thank y'all for hosting this forum to make sure that our citizens are educated. I wanted to apologize for the folks. If you hear that baby in the background, that's my 10-month-old son. He's a little noisy today, but I appreciate y'all for being patient with us. I'm running for 3 particular reasons to represent State Senate District 38. I was born and raised right here in the state of Georgia, in the city of Atlanta. And if elected, I would become the first Gen Z state senator in the history of the state of Georgia at 27 years old. And I'm running for 3 particular reasons: transportation, healthcare, and education. I believe those 3 particular reasons touch our lives every single day. To go to the hospital, everybody in this room has been to the hospital this year, and we have to make sure that we're teaching our babies how to learn and become productive citizens in our society. And so I want to make sure that we're working towards those goals. I also have a 10-point plan on my website that speaks to criminal justice reform, speaks to economic equity, and speaks to abortion rights, and speaks to voting rights in our state. And so we have a lot of work to do, but I'm excited to be here this evening. And I would like to thank you again for hosting this forum. Please visit us online at dj4ga.com, and my phone 53160.
Mr. Terry.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Adams, for moderating, and Ms. Chatman and C.E.E.L for having the event. My name is Richard Wright, and I am running to represent District 38 in the Senate. A little bit about myself. As we were discussing before we started recording, I moved to Atlanta public accountant, and I ended up going to Georgetown Law School as well. And so I'm a product of hard work, and I'm also a product of believing you must change things in your life for the positive. And so I am running for a couple of particular reasons. I ran in 2021 for mayor of Atlanta, and I ran because I cared about the city and I want to make changes in the city. And I'm doing the same thing now as running for Senate District 38. I'm a CPA by day, so I believe in economic development for Black businesses, empowering Black businesses, championing Black businesses. Also believe in the expansion of Medicaid. And I also believe in empowering students in schools, and knowing that I have a GED and I know how it feels. And so I look forward to having a robust
Clean energy production as part of the climate policy that recognizes the urgent threat that climate change possesses to Georgians' health, their lives, and the future. And I'm going to ask Ms. Lewis that question first.
Thank you, Ms. Adams. I appreciate that question. I think we absolutely have to invest in clean energy and build the foundation that we need for the future. We are in a place here in Georgia where so many children, so many adults, seniors are growing up and living in places where our air is not up to where it needs to be. Our water has had some questionable things, and we have to be thinking about what future we're going to leave for the next generation. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old, and one of the things that I am very concerned about as a mother is what the world will look like for them as they are growing older. And I think that if we're not taking time and moving in the steps to invest in the things that we know will lead to, one, more jobs, more sustainable jobs, and a healthier, cleaner environment for all of us, then we're doing a huge disservice to our communities, the earth itself, and just our ability to live sustainable lives. And so I think it's really important that we are promoting and advancing work that allows us to have a workforce that can be prepared to enter into this cleaner energy space, and making sure that we have the skills that are needed to do that, and that we're making the investments and we're changing some of our behaviors now so that we have an earth to inhabit as we move forward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So my next question is, how will you as a junior member of the Senate with no connections, relationships, or influence and who is a member of the minority party, realize your campaign promises in the face of opposition and obstruction? I'm going to start with Mr. Terry.
So first, I would like to say that I wouldn't start with no connections or any kind of connections to members. I have worked in the Georgia legislature. I served as an aide in the Georgia House of Representatives for a term in 2017, and I've also worked in and around the state Senate and the state House for the past 3 years, working for the Atlanta City Council and working for the City of Union City. So I know the senators and the representatives there. I know the relationships that you would need to pass legislation to work with others. I think it's important to make sure that you also work across the aisle to meet a number of senators. I remember a lot of people don't like David Schaefer when David Schaefer was going through the issue with abortion. And I was in the elevator with Mr. Schaefer, and you would think he was the most down-to-earth guy because of the relationships that you have with Republicans, because they simply too are just people. And so making sure that you have those conversations, making sure that you speak up for the issues. One thing that I say is if I'm elected, there will be 3 immediate changes. I would speak up, work together, and make sure that I'm working across the aisle with everyone, right? Speak up, show up, and say something. Showing up every day, because our current representative hasn't done that for the past 5 years. Speaking up, making sure I'm going to the well to advocate for issues and introducing legislation that speak to the issues of constituents in District 38, and making sure that we're working together, not just across the aisle, but within the Democratic Party to advocate for the changes that we want to see. So I think it's important to build those connections and kind of work those relationships to see the issues that you want to get done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. What is your position on maternal mortality in Georgia, and how will you work to support your response? Mr. Kemp.
Yeah, so the healthcare outcomes for women are dangerously low here in Georgia. Black women are 3 times more likely to die as a result of giving birth here in this state, and that has to change. So I think we need to work on getting rid of institutional racism that I think causes much of the issues in healthcare, especially as it relates to women. In addition to that, providing more healthcare opportunities in our community. That is one thing that I want to get to work on immediately on day one, to make sure that we have a full service hospital south of I-20, because we live in a hospital desert in this state. And that is very disturbing to me. And, you know, having a daughter and knowing the outcomes of Black women is really concerning. In addition to that, I think we need to invest in, you know, supporting doulas. You know, studies have shown that doulas and moms that get the access to them really do better when it comes to giving birth. So I think we need to do more, obviously, in making sure that we listen to women and trust them when they are finding issues within their healthcare outcomes, because a lot of times I think it's dismissed. So I think it's very important that we are investing in our community, especially south of I-20, because there is not enough hospital opportunities for women in our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. Have you filed your campaign finance and personal finance reports and reported the address you've lived in for at least a year prior to qualifying? Mr. Wright.
Yes, I have to both. And so being full disclosure is good, and transparency is good for people who want to represent everyone. And so I'm a big advocate of being truthful and transparent with everyone. And so I think that that's a very important item and a very important issue.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. Should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights to habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligence or abuse by property management companies or landlords? Mr. Terry.
So thank you for that question. I love tackling this question because I work in a city where a mayor who is trying to advocate for 20 affordable units by the end of his term in 8 years. And so I'm very familiar with this work. The first thing that I would do as a senator is write a resolution to ask our federal government to change the standard for what AMI is. And so area median income is the level in which they base what affordable means. Right now, AMI for the city of Atlanta includes Sandy Springs, and then of course some more influential areas north of the city of Atlanta, and kind of where our area median income should be based on the area, whether it's neighborhood, community, or zip code. And so working with the federal government to change that would help a lot. The state has to increase its affordable housing stock because we simply have people who are unhoused. And one thing that we talk about is the population who are about to be unhoused. These are people who are about to be evicted. These are people who are about to be removed from their homes. And we have to work to make sure that not only is affordable housing accessible, but we have to make sure that we can get these people to and from their job opportunities, right? We can't just build housing and say, hey, go live here, and they don't have access to a bus route because that's the only way they get to work, right? Or they don't have access to, or a Uber or a Lyft is very expensive to get to and from home every single day. And so we as a state have to look at what we can do to encourage and incentivize some of these investors to make sure that they're building affordable housing, but working with our cities to make sure they understand what needs to be done to have affordable housing
Thank
in their
you.
city.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the next question. Now I have two people that have shared with me their interest in healthcare. So I'm going to ask this question of Ms. Lewis. Recently, this past legislative session, Senate Bill 51, which is the sales and use taxes for feminine hygiene products, has come before the House and the Senate. In the past 4 years, we've been unable to pass that legislation. That would actually save Georgians 4% annually on those products as they continue to shop throughout the year. That is to remove the sales tax for feminine hygiene products throughout the state of Georgia. There are 29 other states that have no tax. What is your position on that? Will you work to pass that legislation? Why or why not?
Thank you. I appreciate this question. And as a woman who has to pay this tax, I believe that we need to be equitable in the way that we treat the issues that men and women deal with. It is a health matter that women would have the need to purchase these products. And I think that it is unfair and unjust that we would be taxed more, and that we often have this sort of pink tax on products that are sold to women in particular. And I think that on account of the fact that, I think only 16 of the 56 senators are women, 3 of them retiring, so only 13 are in our state Senate. So 71% of the people making the decisions in the state Senate are men who don't have to pay this tax. When you look at state legislatures across the country and ours here in Georgia, women are the minority, period. That these decisions, these issues that impact our life care needs are not being prioritized, and are not being considered with the level of necessity and importance that actually impacts our lives. When we think about the fact that women themselves also are often underpaid, that we suffer from an equal pay gap, in which case most women, many of whom are heads of households themselves, do not have the same resources available to them. I think we absolutely need to be intentional about softening the load so that they can manage the very human, natural issues that they deal with.
Thank you very much. So next question. Should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a livable wage? Mr. Wright.
Yes, great question. I think that there is a pathway to raising minimum wage to $15 per hour. I think it has to be gradually stepped up. And I think that the way to offset the increase for small business owners is a tax credit. And so when I get to the Senate, I'm going to propose both that we gradually, over a 4-year period, increase minimum wage to $15 per hour. At the same time, institute a tax credit for small businesses and the minimum cost of hiring someone. And so we don't educate small business to be able to discern and have the knowledge between what's a contractor, what's an employee. And so we have individuals who just say, hey, I cash app someone. Well, that's not payroll, right? Payroll is when you have someone on a W-2 and when you are taking out FICA, Medicaid from their checks and you're matching it as a employer on top of unemployment insurance. And so that adds an extra cost to any small businesses. And so we want to do to mitigate the cost is gradually increase it so that Georgians can have a livable wage, but at the same time mitigate the increased cost by offering tax credits so that small businesses will be able to offset that increased cost.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. Should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education to pay for private school vouchers? Mr. Kemp.
Yeah, thank you for the question. But real quick, I just want to clarify something. I believe Ms. Lewis and myself are the only two candidates up here that filed our most recent financial disclosures that were due at the end of April. In terms of your question, Ms. Adams, absolutely, we should not be sending public dollars to private schools. We need to keep our public dollars in our public education system. We have a literacy crisis in our community. And as a former high school teacher and principal, I am very alarmed by the fact that across the state, only 60% of our students are not reading on grade level. So we do not need to be giving tax incentives to parents who can already afford to send their children to private schools, because that's what that voucher is. It is not giving more opportunities to families that need it, because at the end of the day, that $6,500 is not going to pay for the tuition, the full tuition, to send our children to private school. So I believe that is a red herring, just giving folks who can already send their children to private schools a tax break. What we need to do is focus on improving the literacy rate in our education system, making sure that all children, no matter their zip code, have access to a quality public school. And in addition to that, make sure that we are paying teachers what they are worth. And if we kept money in our public education system, we would have the funds to be able to, one, make sure that every child has access to pre-K, and paying teachers at least.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. Should the state of Georgia expand voter access by allowing same-day voter registration, removing obstacles to voting by mail, and making secure ballot drop boxes accessible at all times through Election Day? If so, why or why not? And that question is for Mr. Terry.
So absolutely. I think one thing that's important that we need to talk about is the importance of making sure that every vote in Georgia is counted. That is a legal vote that is casted by a legal voter in the state of Georgia. Our voting rights are under attack in the state of Georgia, under immense attack by the Republican Party. Literally every week in the Senate during this last legislative session, the Ethics Committee heard a voting bill every week. And so if that doesn't tell you something right there to your face, that Republicans are trying to find ways to make it harder to vote, I don't know what else to tell you, because it truly is starting to become an obstacle to vote in Georgia. I think we need to expand our absentee ballot drop box access to points to where people should not have to show up at a specific time to drop off their ballot. We should always have early and absentee voting that is available for folks who want to make sure that they can cast their ballot whenever they want to, right? When I'm making calls, I'm telling people, I can take you to the polls. We can get you there. If you want to ride, if you want to go, if you need help, you can go and vote right now, every single day through May 17th, and then again on May 21st. And so it's important for us to continue the work. Voting in Georgia is a right. It is not a privilege. And I have to emphasize that, because so many people fought for our right to vote, and it should not be something that we should take for granted.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So the next question. Should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring the protections of Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF abortion, and other reproductive health care? Mr. Kemp.
Yes, absolutely. You know, it is very concerning to me as a dad that my daughter now has fewer rights than the women before her. We must, one, nationally, hopefully something will be done nationally to address this. And we do not reelect Donald Trump, who says it should be up to the states. And we have this patchwork of access for women, where right now women in Georgia have to travel outside of the state to get the health care that is a right to them. I don't believe that any politician or anybody at any capital should be telling a woman what to do with her body. In addition to that, I think that we need to make sure that women have access to all forms of contraceptive care and making sure that we are empowering and trusting women in making decisions about their own bodies. In addition to that, I am fully supportive of any of that Senate bill, but also being realistic, this is a Republican-held legislature. Our goal is to fight against every single thing that comes down the pike, because I believe that now we have a 6-week ban. They're just going to keep trying.
Question. Should the state of Georgia expand Medicaid? Why or why not? Ms. Lewis.
The state of Georgia should expand Medicaid. I think, unfortunately, it was a lack of political courage why that bill did not pass by one vote. We have currently hundreds of thousands of people who are uninsured. We have, 300,000 children who were removed from access to healthcare, and healthcare is expensive. I know from having just had a baby in a hospital how expensive it is to take the child to go to all of those appointments and be able to pay those things out of pocket. It is baffling to me that in such a civilized and prosperous country and state as Georgia, that we cannot afford every single human being the dignity of being able to take care of themselves physically, mentally, etc. And so we absolutely have to be intentional about making sure that that bill passes in this next session and that there are no further encumbrances to people's ability to take care of themselves. It is impossible to have a safe and secure state when people are not well. It is impossible for us to maintain ourselves as a thriving economy when people cannot go to work, they cannot make it to school, they cannot attend to the things that they need to do on a daily basis. And it is unconscionable to me as a woman of faith that we would allow people to not have access to the things that they need to live. This is a life matter. This is not a privilege. This is a right. And it is unbelievable that we have not already ensured that every single person has access.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question. Should the portion of the Georgia State Constitution allowing for involuntary servitude of prisoners and others convicted of offenses by repeal, thus prohibiting all forms of slavery and involuntary servitude statewide? That question is for Mr. Wright.
Yes, great question. We have constitutionally the 13th Amendment. It was part of the Reconstruction bills that were passed. The 13th Amendment eradicates slavery. 14th Amendment gives due process to enforces states to do a due process, and also the 15th Amendment gave the Black man the right to vote. And so the 13th Amendment, I think, is one that really settled this question. And so the state of Georgia, if and when it acts in contrary to that amendment, is acting unconstitutional. And so I think that in those instances when anyone is forced into any involuntary servitude, because that's what a lot of the for-profit prisons do, is they kind of attach their being able to have workers do that on the second stance of the 13th Amendment. And so as a state senator, I will legislate and just communicate with anyone who's doing that, hey, we will bring suit against you, because again, that's a violation. In my opinion, that's a violation of the 13th Amendment against slavery.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question. Should the United States and the state of Georgia protect Georgians from the gun violence by banning assault weapons and large capacity magazines, closing background check loopholes, and passing other common sense gun safety reforms? That question is for Mr. Kemp.
Yes, absolutely. I am for all forms of common sense gun reform. We need to be making our communities more safe, and it is a lie that, guns do not kill people. They absolutely do. In order for any mentally ill or challenged persons to kill someone with a gun, they have to have a gun. And so we need to do more to have stronger background checks. There should be no one in our communities that is able to just pull a trigger and kill so many people with just one pull of a trigger. So I do believe we need to ban assault weapons. And I am, confident that none of us Democrats would ever film a commercial pointing a rifle at a child. So I definitely think that we need to do all we can to keep our children, our community safe. I hope that when I get down to the Capitol, at least folks across the aisle will agree that we need to get guns off of our streets, especially as it relates to folks who should not have guns having access to guns. We just saw recently, this weekend, folks being killed as a result of a fight inside of a club. We have to do more to protect our communities. We need to do more to have common sense gun reform. So I support all of that. I will fight for that. I'm somebody that does not believe that that teachers should be armed with weapons as a result of mass shootings in our schools. We need to get rid of guns, not arm our teachers.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question, should the state of Georgia incentivize clean energy production as part of a climate policy that recognizes the urgent threat that climate change possesses to Georgians' health, their lives, and future? And that is from Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Ms. Adams, for the question. And I would say 100% absolutely. When I was in college at Georgia Tech, I studied carbon capture for the Nature Conservancy. I did research and wrote a 300-page article, dissertation, whatever you want to call it, about the importance of preserving Georgia's tree canopy. And so what carbon capture is when trees retain carbon from the atmosphere, that helps us to breathe clean air. And the more trees we cut down, the harder it is for us to sustain a state that is healthy and whole. And so I think it's important for the state to incentivize landowners as well as people who make sure that they're working towards clean energy solutions. We are in a state where Georgia Power and others are working to make less clean energy, right? And not actually creating more pathways to clean energy like Jimmy Carter has in Plains, Georgia, and other places across the state. We have to do more. And one thing I can give as an example is we've been encouraging our department in the city of Atlanta to actually invest more in solar, right? Making sure that we're educating our citizens, talking to residents who've been in our city that can understand how Weatherize Atlanta and other programs are helping people to make their homes more green. And we have to do that across our state. The state should be offering programs to individual homeowners to make sure that they have clean energy coming into their homes. And we have to work to do that and create programs just for that purpose.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, you've heard some of the platforms and the visions and the views of the candidates who are here with us this evening, and particularly their positions on some of Georgia's proposed legislation. And we will continue. And I do have another question. And again, asking these questions at random, and some will circle back and we'll ask those same questions of some of the other candidates. So again, they will not all receive the same questions at all times, but they will receive the same number of questions. And so this question is the House Bill 1032, which would make it illegal for HOAs to foreclose on homes because of unpaid fees. What is your position on this, and why or why not? And that question is for Mr. Wright.
Yes, I support the bill. I think that it should be illegal for HOAs to be able to foreclose. I think that the larger issue is that how do we get our HOAs to effectively work with the homeowners? And I think that's a long process that we have to do in terms of what the HOA fees are, in terms of what HOAs are responsible for. And so living in a community that has an HOA, and my mom's house has an HOA, and some of the difficulties that she sometimes has with the HOA, I feel that we need to be working on legislation that empowers the homeowner more, but also has a balance for the HOA, because the HOA do serve an important part in the community in terms of keeping the community upkeep, providing services that are within their contract with the homeowner. And so I do believe that there is a balance that can be drawn with the homeowners and the HOA. And I think that as a legislator, I think one of our specific jobs is to be sometimes the mediator to say, hey, listen to both sides and pass legislation that's really for the good of both, sort of like a win-win. And it's just being a CPA and working and with public deals, just know that a win-win is always what you want to have. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question, what is your position on maternal mortality in Georgia, and how will you work to support your response? Ms. Lewis.
Thank you for the question. I think we know that we have a crisis here and that we have to do something. And I think we have to be holistic in our approach. Maternal mortality, infant mortality is an astoundingly high rate for such an industrialized, developed world. But we also need to be thinking about the fact that only 41% of women in this state have access to an OBGYN. And so care for women doesn't just begin, and we shouldn't just be concerned about it once women are pregnant. Women have needs that they need to be able to access qualified care for from well before they may ever consider being pregnant. And we need to make sure that there's the support for them also after, if they've had children, that they're actually able to get care. Shockingly, you only have one doctor's appointment at 6 weeks after you've had a baby to make sure that you're okay. There is no other sort of standardized care or support that is put in place for women. And so we need to really be thinking about, what does healthcare look like for women? How are we making sure that women of all ages are able to access the type of care so that we're not the last ones to be identified for different cancers, including ovarian, cervical cancer, breast cancer, et cetera. So yes, the conversation about maternal health care and outcomes is something that we absolutely need to aggressively address, but we actually need to be thinking about how we're supporting women in general from a healthcare standpoint, from a support standpoint, when they have children, that they actually have access to the resources to care for those children.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question, Senate Bill 51, that's a sales and use sales tax to remove the sales and use sales tax on menstrual hygiene. Let me start over. Senate Bill 51 is the sales and use tax. That's to remove the sales tax on feminine hygiene products throughout the state of Georgia. There are 29 other states that have no sales tax on those products. That would save Georgians over 4% on those products. That question is for Mr. Kemp. Why would you support that, or why not?
Yeah, so I would support that because I see that as a tax on women. It is a very unfair tax to access care that you just rightfully have as a woman. And so I do believe that we need to get that done. Georgia being one of only a few states that does not provide that sales tax relief, we need to change that. I think that it is unfortunate that the House leadership has a woman serving as the number 2, and we are not getting that done. I think that we need to work across the aisle to try to get this done. Hopefully, we can get that done in the Senate in this next legislative session, and then it can cross over into the House, and folks can approve that bill. In addition to that, I believe that we need to do more to balance things as a result of equal pay, ensuring that women are getting paid what they're worth, and making sure that men are not, just by sake of being men, getting paid more for the same type of work that women are doing. So I think it extends beyond just the sales tax on menstrual care. We have a lot of work to do to even the playing field and make sure that women are respected in the state. In addition to that, having the ability to make their own decisions about their bodies. And I believe that's why I was endorsed by Vote Pro-Choice to ensure that women have somebody that's going to fight and stand up for their rights down at the state capitol.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your response. Next question. Should the state of Georgia expand Medicaid? Why or why not? That question is for Mr. Wright.
Yes, great question. I think that Georgia should fully expand Medicaid. I would like to see that happen. I would like to see that happen next session. We were one vote short in the previous session, all right? And I think that one vote can be had. We have improved the certificate of need legislation that will allow us to facilitate building more long-term care, more hospitals, right? Morehouse has a tax exemption, right? And so the next step in the line of certificate of need is to expand Medicaid. But I would be fully, in full disclosure, we have a governor who said he's no to that currently. And I think that the presidential election will moment for that. I think that once President Biden gets reelected, I think that Governor Kemp will soften his stance. I think that the 1115 waiver, which he's using currently to require that you work or you make under $15,000, that will be negotiable. And I plan on picking up the pieces when the current system fails, and in the next session, being able to talk to him and say, listen, we need to fully expand Medicaid. And that's going to be a tough ask, right? But I believe that it can happen. Since he is a constituent of mine, so I don't mind going and talking to him about it. And so we're in the next session, you heard it here, we will expand Medicaid if I'm elected.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question. Should the state of Georgia raise the minimum wage to a livable wage? And this is for Mr. Terry.
Thank you, Ms. Adams, for the question. If you go on my platform online, you'll see that I have advocated for an increase in the minimum wage and the tipping wage. A lot of people don't realize in Georgia, our minimum wage is less than the $7.25. And that's because in Georgia, we have a minimum wage that is set by state law. We have to pay in certain areas of employment, we have to pay the $7.25. But in certain areas of employment, we don't have to pay the $7.25. We can pay the $5. And so I would increase the minimum wage immediately in the first year to $7.25. The second year would be an additional increase of $1.50 over the course of 5 years. And that's to not shock the economic system in the state nor in the Southeast. We have to continue to realize that Atlanta is the driving engine of the Southeast. And we have to make sure that we stay above the fray as we work with our business owners so that we can maintain our status as the #1 state in which to do business. I also would increase the tipping wage from $2.19 automatically to $5.45. And that would be increased by 50%, by 50 cents every year in addition over the course of 5 years. So that way we can have an additional increase in the tipping wage. If you're unfamiliar with the tipping wage, that's the wage that we can pay individuals who work in our restaurants and at our bars and places like that. We have to increase the minimum wage in Georgia because things are simply just becoming too expensive for folks to be able to live, to be able to have a home, to be able to have that American dream that we so-called believe in. We have to be able to work towards those things, and increasing the minimum wage is just one place where we can start.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so moving forward, I'd like to ask the next question. Should the state of Georgia protect reproductive freedom by repealing the current 6-week abortion ban, restoring protections of Roe v. Wade, and ensuring access to contraceptives, IVF, abortion, and reproductive health care? That question is for Ms. Lewis.
I have a very brief answer to this. Yes, we cannot allow our state to turn back the hands of time for women. It is deeply troubling that we do not have the same level of rights, that my daughter, who just turned 3 today, does not have the same level of rights to her body that I've enjoyed for most of my life. It is not just a matter of abortion care, or being able to make decisions about when or how you extend your family, should you so choose to do that. These also have economic implications for women, because having a child in this country and in this state is very expensive, and we do not have infant toddler support for families. We barely have access to pre-K for our children, and our brain science will let us know that most of the development that we need to ensure that our children are going to be successful in K through 12 and on to career happens birth to 5. Yet we do not offer support for women and families to take care of their children. I tell people all the time that my husband and I are fortunate to be able to pay for childcare for our children, but we spend more on childcare each month for our children than we do for our mortgage. And for most people in this state, that is a cost that's too high. We are over the average of what you should be spending, and we need to make sure that we are doing the things that allow women and families to make decisions that are best for them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so we're going to move on to the next question. Should the state of Georgia improve access to safe, affordable housing by increasing the affordable housing supply, protecting tenants' rights to habitable living conditions, and cracking down on negligible or abuse by property management companies or landlords? And that question is for Mr. Kemp.
Yes, absolutely. And I'm very encouraged by the step that was made in the last legislative session and Governor Kemp signed to give some protections to folks that are renting and leasing in properties. But I'm really concerned about the level of affordability across the board, but especially with our seniors. I've been having a lot of conversations across the district with our seniors, and so many of them being told, for example, I spoke to one woman whose rent is going from $400 to $1,000. And that is a huge jump, and it's very unfair. And I think that we need to do more to protect our seniors, to protect our most vulnerable citizens, to ensure that they have an opportunity to live the American dream. It is, very unfortunate that so many folks are being priced out of living in homes that they've lived in for years. And we need to do more to also protect our legacy residents when property values are increasing so much so that they can't afford to stay in their homes. We need to do more to make sure that they have the opportunity to stay in their homes that they've held for years. I think that we need to do much more across the state. This is not just an Atlanta problem. It's a regional problem. It's a problem outside of Atlanta. We need to make sure that we're increasing the stock of affordable housing units for all across our state.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so, ladies and gentlemen, as we ask these questions and the candidates share their positions, do know that not only will they represent the citizens of District 38, but they get a vote to vote on statewide legislation. So bear that in mind as you hear their responses on how they would react to statewide platform. Maternal mortality in Georgia, and how will you work to support your response? That question is for Mr. Wright.
So that's costing the state about $500 million a year. Can we use that money to improve our mortality rates, but all across the state of Georgia? Is a fundamental question. How do you spend the money? Well, can we have pregnancy tests for free at clinics? Can we push that? Can we also push the expansion of Medicaid so that all women throughout the state can have that kind of protection, that type of coverage? Can we go towards really looking at post-birth, right? A mandatory free exam 2, 4, 6 weeks after birth. Can we move that and make that part of a healthcare option? And so I think that there's funds that we have available that we can use towards really mitigating the maternal mortality rate. I can't get my mortality rate within the Black community and within the state of Georgia as well. And so I'm definitely an advocate on, again, being rich in both spirit and finances.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so the next question, should the state of Georgia stop using taxpayer dollars intended for public education to pay for private school vouchers? And that question is for Mr. Terry.
Oh, thank you so much. I get to talk about education. And so as a former public school teacher, I served as a public school teacher at their high school. I taught American government, and I also was a life skills teacher. And so one thing that I'm very passionate about is fighting against legislative ideas that people have no data to back up. And Republicans passed this voucher bill specifically because they believe that there are individuals who will actually actively move their children from a public school to a private school because of a little assistance. And overwhelmingly, this assistance does not cover even close to what is required to attend most private schools in Georgia. And data shows that these private school voucher bills simply just don't work, right? The people who are already going to private schools are going to be able to pay to go to private schools. The people who cannot pay the full tuition and fees to go to private schools will not go to those schools. They will choose to go to public schools. And so one thing that I will say is I fully believe that we should fully fund our public schools without any alternatives. We have to make sure that our babies and our children and our sole focus in the state of Georgia is providing funds to educate our students. Okay, that is, you can feel whatever kind of way you want to feel about it, but I necessarily believe that if you want your child to be successful, you as a strong parent send your child to your neighborhood school that is a public school, and you educate them through the public school system.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, we're rounding up, and I'm going to ask the last question for the evening of our candidates. And this question is for Ms. Lewis. Should the state of Georgia expand voter access by allowing same-day voter registration, removing obstacles to voting by mail, and making secure ballot drop boxes accessible at all times through Election Day? If so, why or why not?
Yes. One, in a democracy, I don't know why we are continually trying to make it difficult for people to participate. And truthfully, the greatest voting bloc that we have currently are the people who never show up to vote. And that is a huge problem. And I think that there's an aspect of that that has to do with educating and making sure people understand the process, that we don't change lines months before an election and not let people know, which is another way to prevent people from actually being able to participate in the process. And I think that every single time that we add some layer of complexity to the process, it decreases the number of people who are going to be able to go and vote. Most people who work a job, who have to show up to somebody's place of employment, don't always have the luxury or policies, et cetera, that permit them to take off time to be able to show up on election day to vote. And that's another way that people who need to be a part of this process, who are directly impacted by the decisions that are made by all of us as elected officials, don't get to have a place to participate in that process. And so we should absolutely make it easier for people to vote, to be able to vote on times and schedules that work for them, to be able to register to vote the same day that they go to vote, because there shouldn't be a concern about people voting if we have a system that is secure, which we have no evidence that shows that our systems are not secure. There shouldn't be a problem with more people participating unless the things that we're trying to do through legislation are not actually the will of the people. And as an attorney, it is my goal to make sure that everyone has the ability to access.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've just heard from 4 of the 6 candidates that have qualified to run for state senator of District 38. Again, this is an open seat, and it was previously held by a long-term senator who has now retired, and so the seat has been vacated. We're going to go ahead and get started with the closing statements, and I do want to remind our candidates that we do have a 2-minute time limit on each of your closing statements, and what I'd like you to do is share, well, if you want, share a little bit more about your platform, how people can get in contact with you, read about you, if you need volunteers, donations, sign waivers, whatever you need, if they want to ask you questions. How can the constituents reach you, and why should you be the better candidate elected to serve in this seat? I'm going to, again, go in alphabetical order by last name, and I'm going to start with Mr. Kemp. If you will, please, 2-minute closing statement.
Yeah, so thank you so much for putting on a very well thought out forum tonight. I really appreciate the way that this was crafted. So thanks to you, Ms. Kathy and Ms. Damita, for hosting us. And thank you, Pastor Chris, for allowing us to be here in your church. I am very encouraged by the fact that our Senate district is going to be represented by someone that is going to be fighting for our rights and being a voice down at the Capitol. I strongly believe that I am the best qualified candidate to be that voice down at the Capitol. My experience as a former high school principal who turned around the school, my experience leading in state government, both in an executive capacity and also working to get laws passed, makes me uniquely qualified to take on this role. In addition to that, me as a father who is on a mission to ensure that my daughter has the same rights that women did before her, and making sure that my son grows up in an environment in which people do not try to limit what our children are taught. And finally, making sure that we have access to healthcare across our state. It is unconscionable to me that so many people across our state are losing access to healthcare, that we live in a hospital desert, and that outcomes in our community just by a few miles can be determined by the lack of access to quality healthcare in our communities. In addition to that, we have to fight for our public education system and ensure that everyone has access to vote when they are ready to make that decision. I am Rashaun Kemp. You can reach me at RashaunFordGeorgia.com is my website. Emails RashaunFordGeorgia@gmail.com. Phone number, I'm going to give out my personal cell, 614-778-9160. I want to be your next state senator because I am uniquely qualified and also the most endorsed Democrat sitting up here today from folks down at the Capitol ready to work with those relationships and get things done for our district. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next, we'll hear from Ms. Lewis.
Thank you. And again, thank you everyone who has put a hand into making this day happen. Thank you to all these gentlemen up here. It has been an absolute pleasure to be on the campaign trail where the level of excellence and commitment is high, and our dedication to making sure that this district and our state moves forward in the best way forward is clear. And so I appreciate being able to be and share this space. I want to tell you, when I opted to jump into this race, it was not a decision that I made lightly at all. In fact, it was one that my family went through a lot of prayer and consternation about. I didn't hear, as a woman, some of the issues that are most impacting my life being discussed. And I know that with other women that I had these conversations with, we were not seeing ourselves reflected. But beyond that, as an attorney who has spent the last decade having to stand with individuals who had laws that were put in place whose impact they did not feel in their lives, who didn't have the resources to enforce laws that were clearly in their favor, who are watching people be incarcerated, caught up in the legal system for very small issues that then dramatically transfer their lives, to watch young children being put out of schools for small age-appropriate behaviors, which sets them on a pathway to prisons. I decided that I could no longer stand alongside and allow laws to be put into place where people don't understand the actual implications of them on everyday citizens' lives. I am here to advocate for you, to fight like a mother, to make sure that Georgia is a safe and inclusive place for all of us to live, work, and thrive. We are entering into the age of rapid change with technology. I want to be that advocate to make sure that we put workers ahead of artificial intelligence and that we are planning for a future and a future economy where every single individual has the opportunity to thrive. And that only happens with a forward-thinking visionary who understands how these things work together.
Thank you very much.
Nkoyo for Georgia.
Mr. Terry, 2 minutes.
Well, thank you, Ms. Adams, to Ms. Chatman, and of course to the staff who are here. I appreciate all of you guys' support for making it just so easy for us to come in here today. You've heard a lot of folks tell you what they're only at, what they are the only thing to do. So let me tell you a little bit about what I'm the only thing to do. I was the only person sitting up here who's been raised and born in this state and in this district. 3 of the 4 schools that I've graduated from are in District 38. My entire family lives within District 38. I was born and raised here in the state and invested in by people and public schools who helped to raise me. From Walter F. White Elementary School to Bunch Middle School to Frederick Douglass High School to Georgia Tech, I have continued to do the work. I've worked for the City of Union City. I work for the City of Atlanta currently. I work for the DeKalb County Board of Commissioners. So we can go on and talk about how qualified we are or how important it is to do this work. And I've done it by the age of 27. And so one thing that I want to say is I'm fighting for what my community, what my family, and what the people I love care about. I'm fighting to improve the roads and the infrastructure that we have here in our state. I believe in an idea called Vision Zero, where our fatalities are reduced to 0 on our roads. We can design our roads to do that. In our healthcare system, we have to make sure that we expand Medicaid, make our state healthier for mothers and Black women in particular to have children in this state. And we have to get a hospital south of I-20 because it is unconscionable that we have over 200,000 residents who don't have access to a hospital. It's unconscionable, and it's not fair for the people who live in our district. And the last thing I want to say is we have to improve our educational outcomes for our babies. Our kids are reading at a level that is unbelievable, 37% in APS, and we have a 43% literacy rate at 3rd grade in the state of Georgia. And so we have to invest in our kids. We have to make pre-K and kindergarten mandatory. So please look at me up online, dj4ga.com, and my cell phone number is listed there as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And next we'll hear from Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Ms. Adams, Ms. Chatman, Pastor. This is a personal journey for myself. I moved to Atlanta in 1997 with my GED, and I'll admit I was a broken person, right? I came here with a lot of excuses of why I didn't graduate, why I didn't do what I needed to do. And so Atlanta taught me a lot. It raised me. And so from going from a GED to a CPA, my mother always tell me that's a story. And so I need to get out in the community and make the changes that my education has allowed me to get. And so I've been blessed. I'm not even going to lie to anybody. I've been truly blessed. Less than 1% of African Americans are CPAs, and I happen to be one of them. And so I plan on using that experience that I gained at PwC, working in the minority in terms of a deal to fight and advocate for everyone who's listening, for everyone out there in District 38, and for African Americans throughout the state of Georgia. I plan on going and working with the other side, using the experience to get Medicaid expanded. I'm a big advocate for, we have to do something about the mortality rates in Georgia, because that is a fundamental issue. It's a moral issue, and one that we're not addressing clearly enough at the Capitol. And so I plan on fight for maternity health. I have a GED, so I know how it feels to fail in high school. And so understanding that will allow me to fight for what we need in education. Some of it has to do with the personal responsibility that we all need to take, but also how do we make school easier? How do we give more African Americans, in particular African American men, more role models that don't rap and that don't sing? And so my name is Richard Wright. Website www.wrightforgeorgia.com, and thank you for listening to us.
Thank you. So ladies and gentlemen, again, this is to my in-person audience and the virtual audience. You've just heard from 4 of the 6 qualified candidates. You've heard their platforms for the evening, why they feel that they are the better candidate to serve in District 38. So just want to round this up. This Senate seat, this race is for a 2-year term. It starts in January 2025, and ends in December of 2026. So there will be 2 years. Every 2 years, they will have to run for re-election. Their future lies in your hands. They're asking you tonight for your vote and to vote for them because they feel that they are the better candidate. As a constituent of this district, District 38, we're asking that you do exercise your right to vote. And I want to leave you with some clear some dates, some very important dates. Early voting has already begun. The last day to early vote is this Friday. Go out and early vote. If you miss it this Friday, then you'll have to go to the polls on Tuesday to vote. The primary election is on next Tuesday. It's a week from tomorrow. That's May 21st. If there is a runoff, the runoff is on June 18th. And then in October, whomever wins the runoff will go and be on the ballot in October. In November. But early voting begins October 15th through November 1st. October 25th is the last day to request an absentee ballot. Their Saturday voting dates that are mandatory Saturday voting dates are October 19th and October 26th, and the mandatory Sunday dates are October 20th and the 27th. Again, election day is November 5th. If there is a runoff for the general election, it will be on December 3rd. And at that point, the candidates in that runoff will have 30 days to campaign and run again. And so the same applies in the primary. If there's a runoff, they will have 30 days to campaign and run again for the runoffs. But ladies and gentlemen, again, as a resident of District 38, you owe it to yourself, your family, your community, to help elect the next qualified public servant that will develop and govern this great state of Georgia. Most of this district is in the largest county of the state. And as I mentioned earlier, not only will they represent District 38, but they will have one vote through the Senate, Georgia's Senate. So we're relying on them, whomever this candidate is, to make good, smart decisions about how this state will be governed and how to be run. So I leave you with this in closing. Be an educated and informed voter, and thank you for listening this evening. That's the first start. But know before you go, know who is on your ballot, know what is on your ballot, know when to vote, and know where to vote. Go to the Secretary of State's website at www.sos.ga.gov/MVP. It's my voter page. Enter your information and pull a sample ballot before you go vote. That's how you can know before you go. The what is on your ballot is equally as important. And I stress down ballot voting. Don't stop at the top. Go down the ballot. Read the questions that are on the ballot. Look at the judicial candidates that are on the ballot. Go down ballot. So, ladies and gentlemen, more so than anything, exercise your right to vote. And thank you for joining us this evening. And I'm going to turn the floor back over to our host for the evening, Ms. Damita Chatman.
I want to thank all the candidates for showing up, even the ones that got sick and the ones that did not confirm. But most of all, I want to thank the residents and citizens of this great city and state. This is the last night of our forums. We're not endorsing anyone. We're going to take pictures with you guys. That's not endorsement. This is the first time y'all going to take one with me. And I see a elected official in the House. I want to thank Representative Lydia Glaze for coming tonight. This election is very important. Whoever you vote on, that's your choice. But we have to make sure that we get the right people in office. And let me say this, I'm gonna have to give you the word. We can't and we need to stop voting because folks belong to a certain church, a certain organization, because you went to kindergarten with them, because you live next door to them. Because at the end of the day, it's not about a friendship, it's about the taxpayers and the voters. And that's very important. And you work with the winner or the one that's going to be in the runoff. Because at the end of the day, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take all of us. You can look on the news right now and see how folks is bickering. You ain't even got to look on the news. You can look in my city. So what I'm telling you guys and asking you guys, let's work together. It's not about who you like or who you think. It's about once that voter has made that decision next Tuesday night, that we got to live with that decision. I didn't want to live with 45, but he was my president, so I had to respect him. Y'all might not think so, but even when I go to make a post and he don't agree with it, he say, Damita, So I want to thank him for being that husband, right or wrong. He gonna stand by me, but he gonna criticize me. I want to thank you. I want to thank my son, but most of all, I want to thank the residents and the candidates that trusted me to put the forms on you. It hasn't been easy because see, when you don't do what candidates say do, that that mouth a lie. It'll lie quick. So what I do, I tell everybody, if I ain't got nothing else, I'm gonna have integrity. And Mr. O been waiting for that peach cobbler, and he told me don't tell it. But I had to obey the preacher. He told me don't do nothing this weekend because I was gonna cook. He said don't do nothing. So we're gonna break bread. I'm gonna let you know in an email when we're gonna break bread. And also I want to give these out. I can't give one because the other one's incoming in. So when we break bread, you guys will get that from the C.E.E.L. And we'll get everything else that we got for you guys. In closing, I want y'all to know that C.E.E.L don't make no money, ain't taking no money. I'm gonna say it the way I want to say it. And I ain't taking no money. Everything that has been spent is coming out of my household. And so I'm all right with that. Hubby is all right with that. So again, I'm going to turn it over to the pastor of this fine church. Again, Pastor Chris, I want to thank you so much because last time he placed me over in District 7 with Pastor Dale Foster. And I thought I was going to be back over there, but the Lord sent me over in District 1. So wherever the Lord send me, that's where I'm going to go. And I might end back over Pastor Foster, but we're going to be obedient to the Spirit. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sister Chatman. Thank everybody that's participating here this evening. And this has been excellent. I want to just say to these candidates, high bar in terms of presenting yourselves tonight. I want to say thank you to all of you for setting that bar high. Again, thankful to be providing a place for these gatherings and to show what collaboration can look like between the church and the community, and thankful for being able to hear what has been shared here this evening. Some of you may not have heard this already. It happened just this weekend. I know it came up about some of the violence that is going on in our nation. You need to be praying for houses of worship. Houses of worship are under attack. And so this weekend, there was a gathering of 60 children. And I thought about it because we had some kids here Saturday preparing for Mother's Day. And there was a gathering of 60 kids in a Catholic church where another teenager came with a gun intending to do harm and had to shut down the service. So we don't take for granted being able to come in here and have free and open discussion. We have to have cameras everywhere. And now that church, and it's leading the way for all of us churches are going to probably be doing this real soon, where we have to have law enforcement every time we open the doors of the church. So I close with saying we've got to raise the community standards. It's the community standards that will impact our public officials and the legislation that goes forward. So I pray that we will raise our community standards. Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for all of these forums that have been held here over the last month. all of the multiplicity of candidates and particularly here on this evening, the well representation on the issues of discussion, providing a choice for a voting public to go forward. And so, Father, I just pray for protection for every family that is represented here this evening. I pray for those that are already in office and serving even now. I lift up to you those that will go forth. And I thank you for the wise counsel of not allowing an election to stop one from rolling up their sleeves, that they will go forward even in their calling. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.